three. 1, 2, 3. Let's go.
All right, everybody, welcome to Teaching Crypto. I've been looking forward to this show all day. Some interesting things to get to. So, Mr. FOMO, let's address what's going on in the market as we've seen a little bit more of downward action. We talked about the fact that September has traditionally not been great, usually for Bitcoin. And on top of that, we got some news that, during the FTX bankruptcy, which we talked about last week, how FTX and Voyager are in remediation. Galaxy Digital, our old friends who are rumored to be a part of Voyager but never were in the acquisition, is handling the FTX liquidations, and they want to sell over the counter to existing exchanges for stablecoins. And so that's causing a lot of panic in the market. It caused Bitcoin to briefly go under 25K, brief rally back at 25. What I said is if we can hold 25 or even in the high 24s, that would be a huge win this month. And again, a lot of people are now starting to call for 20K. And I think what my perspective is, what's going to happen is we're not going to hit 20K. Now, is it mathematically impossible that we don't hit 20K? No. But I think a 20K hit would be really temporary. And I want to talk about some people that are taking victory laps about Bitcoin hitting 25. And we're going to talk about that in just a little bit. But here, Mr. FOMO, you kind of have a recipe for some downward action a little bit here. You got a historically bad month with some bad news. I don't think this is crippling news. And what I tweeted is don't be a prisoner in the moment, because some people, we'll get to an example here, are acting like that's it. Year's over for Bitcoin. Bull run's over. We're finished. It was a great run, but crypto is over. And I say not so fast. You got to look at the history of Bitcoin here.
Let's take a look at just the chart, right? So let me make sure I'm sharing that before I start mouthing off. All right, so the 30-day chart, that looks pretty horrible, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you zoom out to the year, I mean, you like you said, adjust your timeline and check your emotions, and you will see that it's not as bad as you actually think it is. And you see a lot of people freaking out because they look at this chart, looking at this chart, they're looking at this chart, and they fail to zoom out. They fail to say, all right, where are we at in the bigger picture? Where are we at when we look at the all-time chart? There are a lot of different ways to look at this. And a lot of people out there will tell you, when in doubt, zoom out. It's something that's sort of classic in crypto. And so I hate that people get that emotional that they would feel like they would have to attack you online. But I saw some of those tweets and I decided not to jump in because it was
and it's fine. We're not
like a lot of investment emotion that person was sort of directing at you or directing at the channel, and it was sort of misguided. It seemed like they had either been just reading the headlines or maybe only, looking at the thumbnails. And those can be misleading. I'll admit I make those thumbnails, and I'm trying to get people to click on them. So if you're misled by those thumbnails, I apologize.
And here's the deal, right? I've admitted that I was wrong about August, but Mr. FOMO was correct. And we've both talked about September being a difficult month for upward action. But what we've both maintained is not only will we have some type of recovery, but then it'll be followed by downward action. Now, I'll give you an example of someone that really speaks before looking at the information that we've been sharing. And again, we're not perfect by any means, guys. This is something that we do for fun. This is something we do for entertainment. This is something that we're growing at, and we put a lot of time and effort into this. So this gentleman is upset that Bitcoin went down to 25K, right? That's first. Okay. And he's going back now. Yes, I did say when we were at 31.8 that I thought we could hit 40. I didn't say maintain 40, by the way. I said hit 40 and then retrace and then go back above 40 around the halving. And he wants to bet with me that Bitcoin will not hit 40 by the end of the year. Now, a couple things. First of all, obviously, the chance of getting to 40 now are not as high as they used to be. It doesn't take a mathematician to understand that. But and I want to thank all our viewers, especially this gentleman. What he fails to understand is it's not about August. It's not about September. It's not even really about October, because I could be wrong. You could be wrong from about October. It's about the next year and a half. So if you don't think Bitcoin's going to hit 40, then don't invest in it. Don't spend a lot of time researching it. If you don't think Bitcoin's going to hit 50 over the next year and a half, don't spend your time and effort into it. You say this all the time. The fundamentals have not changed. So listen to me, and I'm just going to be honest. I don't give a damn if it hits 40 in the next 2 to 3 months. Would I like to be right about that original prediction? Sure, but it doesn't matter because I'm not in it for the next 2 to 3 months. I'm in it for a year and a half.
And I disagreed with you on that when we talked about it. Moreover, when we say things like this, we don't just offer a thesis, we offer support for that. For instance, I talked about maybe at the end of September, we might see a little bit of a leg up, only because I thought maybe people could be coming back from the Halloween indicator that sort of go away in May and stay away until September. Well, people should start coming back at the end of September. That is the only support that I had for that thesis. So we even said that it was weak and that there was a lot of resistance at the 29 and 30 level. So this kind of is disappointing. It feels sort of crab in a barrel.
And if you really think that Bitcoin is never going to go up over the next 3.5 months, that's fine. That's fine. Just know the history of crypto, and it goes against that philosophy and that theory. We never said Bitcoin's going to 40, then 50, then 60, then 70, 80, then 90 right away. There's going to be a lot of drops along the way. This is still, and honestly, I think we made the mistake of calling it the very beginning of the bull run. It's honestly, we should have called it pre-bull, because we're not really, we are in a bull in a sense because we bottomed out at 15, right? And we made a huge bump up to 31.8. But now we've retraced, and I misjudged the retrace. I didn't think it was going to be that drastic, right? At 25, I didn't think we were going to get down to 25. Now I'm looking at, and again, I think the goal here for Bitcoin is to go sideways, right? A 20K Bitcoin, now it's much more difficult to get to 30, and obviously 40 is a huge barrier at that point. And let's be honest, if we do go down to 20K this month, the chance of getting 40 are very slim. However, I just want to remind this viewer and other viewers that are spiking the ball early, it is September 11th, 2023. It is not December 31st, 2023. It is not March 1st, 2024. There's a long way to go. So again, if you don't think Bitcoin is going to hit 40K over the next 6 to 12 months, then you're in the wrong space. We'll happily take your viewership. We will take it. We appreciate all our viewers, but this gentleman here, and I'm going to tweet at him at the end of the show. Hopefully he watches the show and not just reads the headlines. You've got it wrong, my friend. If you are in Bitcoin, you should not be in it for the next 30 to 60 days. You can be, but that's not the best strategy here. We've talked about that. So my advice to you is to zoom out. Don't worry about what happened in August. Now, if you gambled big in August and lost because of the show, I apologize, but that's not what we told you to do. And so I would recommend is that you zoom out and just be a little bit more patient. That's all.
And maybe my name is a little misleading, Mr. FOMO, but I will be skeptical. And a lot of the times I have been skeptical. And I even spoke in an earlier show about how we might largely chop sideways until the halving event. You did. And that you can only expect small bumps starting in October because that was about 6 months out.
I mean, you're expecting us to be well below 40 before the halving. My original expectation was we would get to 40, but then have a real retrace around the holiday season leading up to Christmas, New Year's, and then come back late January, early February into March, and then get past 40K, well above 40K. After the halving, but again, and then eventually, I did think, my goal was 90 to 120 is my range for the top of the market, but I think that's being very, very conservative, actually. So
I just don't think the cycle is broken. We've talked about it before. I just don't think that there's enough people in the crypto market to break the cycle that way. And if you look at it, if you overlay the other bull runs, you can see that leading up to the halving event, there's not explosive growth. Especially when you look at the last bull run, you saw that explosive growth well after the halving event. I think more towards the end of the year after the halving event. And so we've still got some time. And so the idea is when you get to these levels, and like you said, I hope it does get down to 20,000. I'll be able to scoop up some more cheap Satoshis. But the other thing I did call on Friday night is I said I bought Bitcoin on Friday. So you can expect between the next 12 and 48 hours, you're going to see a dip. And it came true. So there you go. It was spot on. How about that?
And for those of you that are guaranteeing 20K, just be careful. That's all I'm going to say. Because October traditionally has been good. And again, it only takes one set of news to and again, I do not see us, and I've said this before, just having a straight march up all the way through the halving. Guys, there's going to be another dip along the way. So even if we're right and we do well in October and early November, I would expect sometime in Thanksgiving, we're just going to be honest, it doesn't help the show's numbers, but December, you're going to see some downward action a little bit towards January. And then sometime in 2024, somewhat early, because remember the halving is April 1st, you're going to see it pick up again. And then you are going to see some real movement in 2024 and into 2025. And when this is over, it's everyone's best. You buy 6 months before and 18 months after, but you got to be careful because we did have a double top last time. So I hope that viewer, and I want to mispronounce his name, does watch this program tonight and have a little bit of better perspective about what this show was about, because I really think he missed the mark. Kind of reminds me, and me and Mr. FOMO, we're both sports fans. It's the football season. It's week 1, and your team is up 10-0, and you've acted like you've won the Super Bowl. And there's still a whole game to play, and there's still a whole season to play. So maybe don't celebrate just yet. That's all I'm saying.
I just don't understand. We never present ourselves as people who are definitely in the know. Like this is definitely going to happen. Go ahead and put your money on it.
That's different channels.
So I just don't understand the emotion behind it. We're not telling you to leverage trade. We're not telling you to do anything like that.
Talked about DCA
predictions. Yeah. I just don't understand. I hope to hear more from this person because I just don't understand it.
I would hope to hear more after he's actually watched the show and gone back once to the old shows, because I've been a pretty harsh critic of myself. The 35K was a bad call, right? And I said that, and I really misjudged August big time. I missed, and you know what the goal is though. You learn from that, and you don't make the same mistake again, right? But to act like the market is over and that's it and the year's over, it's just premature. And if you go back and look, that's kind of the way crypto goes, right? When you think things are at the worst, usually there's a turnaround coming at some point. So even if we do hit 20K, which I have to say is possible, I do not expect it to happen. But
if you look,
it's not the end of the world. It's not gonna stop Bitcoin from hitting 90K in the upcoming bull run. It's just not. Whether you want to call this the pre or the very beginning of it, we're still doing much better than we were at 15. Now, if we somehow got back to 15, we need to have a whole nother conversation, but we'll have that conversation when we get there. So Mr. FOMO, let's move on. You want to talk about Gary Gensler. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, we very well could, we got his written remarks already today ahead of tomorrow's oversight testimony. And he hasn't really changed anything. He's still not high on crypto. He says that there's still a lot of people that are non-compliant and that they should be regulated as securities. And so, I could even see that kind of information having a sort of a damper on the market as well. And so there's these sort of ugly things hanging around right now that are tugging at the market. You've got the FTX and the possible OTC sales of their tokens. And we're still digging to find that out. But remember when that happened with Voyager, there was a similar dip in the market, and then it returned right back to where it was prior to that. And so even if FTX does affect the market that way, I expect it to recover a little bit. Even if Gensler comes out and the market is spooked a little bit tomorrow, I expect it to return again, because the smart money is buying cheap Satoshis. And so could I see it going to 20? Sure. But if it does, it's not going to stay there for long. So have your wallet ready.
No, if it hits 20, probably what would happen when it hit 25 the first time. It's going to be tough to get on places like Coinbase and other exchanges because so many people are going to be ready to buy. 20, it's not financial advice again, but 20 is, even if the worst case and it goes back to 15, you're not going to regret buying at 20, 12 to 18 months. If you really think that Bitcoin is going to stay at 20 and below 25 for the next year and a half, again, you're in the wrong place, because
even if you don't think it's going to get to 40, even if you don't think it's going to get to 40, even if you think I might get back to 30, if you buy right now and it gets back to 30, you made 20%.
So for the majority of the people that are, not going to sell their Bitcoin until, and this is what I try to express, until much later in 2024, 2025, whether it hits 40 in November this year or March or April next year is not going to make or break the way people see things and the way the market goes. So we'll just have to wait and see. Again, I would just be careful if you have guaranteed in your mind that Bitcoin is dead for the rest of 2023. That's all. We might see an Undertaker tweet come out at some point. But before we leave, I just want to talk about HBAR because it's starting to creep down again. And entertainment purposes only. But if I can get an HBAR at 4 cents, it does turn around. All I'm going to say is I'm very, very interested in that type of price, that type of entry, because last time that type of entry happened, it was very beneficial for the people that caught it. That's all I'm going to say. The last time we got to 4, we saw a run up over a month and a half over 7 cents. So if HBAR does get down to 4, take a look at it. That's all.
I'm going to talk about one of my calls earlier in the month, Efinity. It's, if you remember, it's the metaverse token for Engine. It saw a 30% pump and then stayed pretty high after that. So take a look at that one. Maybe don't buy right now because it just saw that recent pump against this downward action. But it still has a fairly low market cap, I think at like 40 million. So that's a pretty tasty thing to grab, especially knowing that they're linked to Engine and that they're the metaverse token. Let's see, there was something else I wanted to say, but now I forget. So, if you are futures trading or you are leverage trading, do it on something like Perpetual or Nexo, where you can take out a perpetual futures contract where you're not locked into a date. That can offer you some security if you are doing that with futures. Also, be careful with leverage trading. You can be liquidated really fast.
Very good advice. Remember, guys, hit that like, and most importantly, help us out. Hit that subscribe button. Share the show. We really appreciate every single one of you, even the ones that are mocking our short-term predictions. For MrFOMO, this is AZcrypto. Have a wonderful evening, everybody. We'll see you later this week.
See you.